Hey guys, it's Wednesday. It's been a very busy week so far, and we had Jerome Powell come and talk to everyone and create some volatility in the market. We have a lot to cover. Microsoft and Meta are soaring after market, and it's looking like it's going to be a strong finish to the week. I want to cover 6 different stocks today. I want to cover Rigetti, IONQ, LAES, SEALSQ, FUBO. I don't believe I've ever covered FUBO on the channel before, so we're going to go over the company, AI, and BigBear.ai. So we're going to do 6 stocks in about 15 to 17 minutes is my goal. We're going to also look at the news and the market heat map. If you like content like this, make sure you hit the like button. It helps other retail investors see this content and stay informed. All right, let's jump in. Okay, so just looking at the heat map today, Nvidia continues its climb 2% on the day. Microsoft and Meta were actually a little bit down going into their earnings. Much positive surprise in aftermarket, and those stocks are absolutely soaring. Aftermarket, Amazon was down a little bit. Palantir is moving up as we get towards earnings. Just taking a look at our quantum watch list, we saw that SEALSQ actually topped the quantum watch list today with a 3.57% gain. And at some points during the trading day, it was up above 5%. We're going to take a look at the stock chart on that. Google is slowly walking its way to 200. I believe that with all the positivity that we're seeing in the market after hours today, I believe that Google is going to walk its way up to 200. And we saw some sell-off in Skywater. D-Wave is having a hard time holding 18 and 17. So we'll see what happens with D-Wave moving into earnings. And Rigetti actually fell to almost 14 a share. And a lot of the sell-off came around the time that Jerome Powell made his speech. So let's look at that. So essentially, Powell stressed that there's no decisions made. So he didn't even really give a forward path to a September rate cut. And investors were really hoping for a long shot today. Even a quarter point is what investors were hoping for. Personally, I think that what is happening with the housing market and the fact that it's very difficult, especially for a younger person or really anyone for that matter, to consider buying a home or getting a car right now. We are at the point where we need at least some relief there. And what I didn't like about what Jay Powell said in his speech today was that their decisions don't have any correlation to the housing market because mortgage rates are set in a different way. But interest rates obviously affect mortgage rates. So I didn't like that at all. The market didn't like that. Market was sent down by 0.5% or even 0.75% intraday, and it was a sharp drop. Jay Powell is not very popular at this point in time. We also see that after hours, Meta exploded, and not only did they give great earnings, the company says it anticipates between 47 and 50 billion in third quarter revenue, well ahead of the 46 billion Wall Street expectations. Microsoft also had a massive day. Cloud and AI is the driving force of business transformation across every industry and sector. And we even saw Nvidia is up after hours. So if we just hop back to the extended hours for the trade, the post-market, we can see that Microsoft is up, Amazon's up post-market, and even Nvidia is up post-market. So that is nice to see. All right, getting into our stocks, we're going to start with Rigetti. So as you guys know, I am very bullish on Rigetti for the rest of the year. They have earnings coming up. They have hardware releases. They have 2 hardware releases coming up. So I've been playing this every time there's a dip in Rigetti. I'm buying the 15 strike January 2026 call option. And shout out to Harry comments on YouTube. He's always saying, buy Rigetti before earnings, buy Rigetti before earnings. Of course, Rigetti recently in earnings hasn't really produced a lot of revenue. But what's really interesting about this earnings is it's so close in proximity to when they are releasing their new hardware, that 36 qubit chip. So what's been happening with Rigetti is on this news, essentially Rigetti moved from a $12.50 position to a $17 position and then held for a couple trading days. So we saw Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in July, it hold this $17 position before some sharp sell-off. It found support at 15, held above 15, almost made its way back to $16.50, and then it dropped. Now, what I'm looking at and what I told the members of the channel today is I'm concerned that the timing with the Fed has put us in a precarious spot for Rigetti. So Rigetti has this history of getting rejected off of 15. 15 is definitely an area where it can reject. And what ended up happening today is it actually dropped to 14.17 or so, which is well under this threshold where we've seen lots of rejections historically. So if we get a little closer, it's a little bit more clear how that rejection has come into play. So before, it was working as support, but now we can see that 15 is starting to work as resistance. And it's a psychological level. $15 a share is a psychological level for sure. We can see that after market, the dip is being bought a little bit, but it's going to be critical for Rigetti to get over 15, or the stock price could see more bearish movement. So if we just kind of look at this from the perspective of the rising support here, this blue line, there certainly could be a retracement down to this rising support and maybe a bounce, and maybe it does something like this until the next catalyst. The next catalyst could be earnings, or it could be that hardware release. So keep your eye on Rigetti in the near term. I'm still very bullish on Rigetti. All right, LAES. So LAES. So our channel friend and contributor, Fabio, who is over in the channel members Discord and contributing every day over there, and we're all having fun. So he had an interview with the CEO of SEALSQ. How cool is that? So today, this morning, that's how I started my day at 6 a.m. sharp. And he was interviewing all the way, this CEO, Carlos, is all the way over in Europe, and he's interviewing. And while he's interviewing, look at the green candles that SEALSQ got. And SEALSQ was actually the best performing quantum stock on the quantum watch list. Now, recently, SEALSQ has been in, unfortunately, a bit of a bearish downtrend. And we saw that SEALSQ made it all the way to $4.50 before recently this more bearish price activity. So what I'm measuring out here is just these lower highs and lower lows. And the price action today may be the beginning of what could be a trend reversal. Now, I'm going to invite Fabio on the show, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be a special episode where we're going to break down what Carlos said, and we're going to give our interpretation. I want to pick Fabio's brain and ask him, did anything surprise you about what Carlos said? And we're going to look at that. So we're going to do a deeper dive into LAES. But as far as the stock price is concerned, there are certainly headwinds for LAES. It first needs to get out of 350. 350 is a big zone for it. And then, of course, longtime channel followers know that 388 is both the resistance and the support for this stock, if you can see that white line there. And currently, and most recently, 388 has been acting as resistance. So we'll need to see it break and close above 388 to really call a bullish reversal here. All right, now taking a look at IONQ. Now this one has surprised me. I think patience is going to be key here. And what Fabio had mentioned in the Discord is that it's presenting as a head and shoulders, but I think this could really, really easily be a bear trap. And the reason I think that it could be a bear trap is because IONQ has got nowhere close to giving back this 38% day. So a lot of the optimism in the stock was priced in It was more like a 43% day. I think 38% is what the print was, but unbelievable price action. And then we can see that actually IONQ has been struggling to hold above this imaginary blue line. We're probably in a second sort of bearish downtrend, but earnings are coming up. And we know that IONQ has guided for, I believe, 16 to 18 million. And they've had a lot of recent acquisitions. So that earnings call could absolutely have fireworks. I'm currently very bullish on IONQ going into earnings, and I'm not worried about these day-to-day price actions. So what earnings are slated for August 6th, not too many trading days left. I would keep IONQ on your radar, as there is definitely a possibility that it comes up from this 40 or 39 and change and does so with force. All right, BigBear.ai. So I know a lot of you guys in the channel comments were asking about BigBear.ai. And I just want everyone to keep in mind that this has already happened, okay? So it's a 160% move. If you invest in the S&P 500 for 20 years, you might get 160%. So since April, the stock has already moved that much. So instead of wanting the immediate explosion up, understand that often with the immediate explosion up comes the collapse down, which is what happened with Big Bear. So as a longer term investor, seeing Big Bear hang around this 650 and 876, that's beautiful, because what's happening there is the stock is starting to validate some key levels. Now, could Big Bear keep being bearish, and could it come down to 524? I think there's a lot of levels we'd start looking at if it gave back this gap. There's definitely a gap to fill there, and it would potentially come down to 524 in a bearish case. But from what we're really seeing is kind of a pattern hold here, where we've seen a repeat push to 876, sell down to 650. And I'm personally okay with this price action. I'm okay with it going to 5. Anything under 5, I might add to my position a little bit more. We're already kind of in a longer trend than over here. So Big Bear is building support. That's the way I would look at Big Bear at this point in time. Now, could it go down? Absolutely. It could go down further from this point. And one last note on Big Bear. Of course, the 650 could be a bounce for Big Bear. We could definitely see the wider market with Microsoft and Meta coming in with these huge numbers. A lot of these speculative stocks that are more risky could see a nice bounce off supports. We've already validated a couple times that 640, 650 is a critical figure. So keep your eye on Big Bear. There might be more left in the tank there. All right, so FUBO, we're going to do this really quick, but FUBO is essentially, they are a TV company, television, sports, live sports and TV without cable. They gave preliminary Q2 2025 results. So usually when a company gives Q2 25 results, it's either really bad or really good. And they gave good results. And if we look at FUBO, the revenue has been steadily increasing, and their free cash flow, while they're burning a lot of cash, they're actually starting to get into free cash flow positive, net income positive, operating cash flow positive. So they're kind of like flipping. And we also know that there's a potential acquisition coming up for FUBO. So FUBO sees Disney-Hulu and live TV deal closing earlier than anticipated. FUBO has accelerated the expected timeline for closing its sale to Disney, now anticipating the transaction will close in the fourth quarter or the first 3 months of 2026. So investors have been piling into FUBO. I've been in FUBO for about 9 months or so. And what we saw today was actually a pretty crazy price move. We saw on FUBO, we saw a 22% gain at one point, and we closed at 17%. In post market, we're holding that 22% for FUBO. And this stock is trading at about $4 a share. If we look back at 1 year of price history, we see that early January, we saw the enthusiasm come in for the stock, and I entered around here. So I'm just like, I'm even on this trade. I haven't made a lot of money. I haven't lost a lot of money. What's the upside from here? Well, the upside is potentially retesting this 52-week high. That's a 50% gain. Now that's if the market holds up, if sentiment holds up, and if the deal goes through, and if there are numbers. So there's a lot of ifs, but we have preliminary guidance. We have preliminary earnings, not guidance. And it does look like it's potentially in a bullish trend. So just looking at the year chart, it has been fairly flat, but we're starting to get a little bit of a rising support here and potentially a breakout. So keep your eyes on FUBO. All right, guys, last stock, Veritone AI. So enterprise AI that makes people superhuman. So Gene Inger actually brought up Veritone AI to me. And Veritone, we've looked at the financials before. It's not the best on paper, but what's really interesting about Veritone is that there's all these AI plays that are having turnarounds or doing really well because the theme of AI is doing really well. And we can see that Veritone has had declining revenues. They do have 660 employees. And just looking at the stock chart for the last year, we are constantly in a downtrend with Veritone. So this is a very dangerous stock, definitely a dangerous place to put your money. So for me, someone who has an exceptionally high tolerance for risk, I decided to start a position kind of down here, and I've seen some nice return on this trade. However, every single time historically someone has thought, okay, we're looking at 5 years of Veritone. Every single time someone has thought, oh, Veritone's turning it around. That has not been the case. They've lost more money. So just keep that in mind. Now, on the note of Veritone, actually their PR team has reached out to me and they would like to set up an interview with the CEO to talk about Veritone and the company. And I'm just wondering, is that content that you all would be interested in seeing? I know Veritone isn't specifically quantum, but I do cover a bunch of different quantum AI and space stocks on this channel. I thought it might be fun to have them on and kind of hear their story. And is this a turnaround story? So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for making it this far. So our Discord community is definitely coming alive. We have now added a bunch of different channels. So we have our general chat, trade alerts, buys and sells, and now we're getting specific channels for companies. And I'm having a lot of fun with this. So if you guys enjoy content like this and want to support the channel, I actually offer channel memberships starting at $4.99. Gold Bull membership that is $14.99 that gets you into our Discord. Also, shout out to David USA. I'm going to shout David out because David has been absolutely killing it with his trade. So shout out to David. All right, guys, hope you have a great evening and we'll see you in the next one.